All right, so yesterday we talked about, y'all got started with equations, okay? I wanted you to see, because I want you to have this visual, and I'll take this. This visual of this scale, because that's what an equation is. Yesterday we looked at the right side of the equation, left side of the equation. Those of you that weren't here yesterday, I'll get the brace map drawn and put into Google Classroom for y'all to copy those notes, okay? But we looked and talked about the right side and left side, and I want you to see this balance. Do you see how that is perfectly balanced? Now, there's 5 Unifix cubes on the left and 5 Unifix cubes on the right. So if I take and remove 2 Unifix cubes off the left, what happens? It's uneven. So if I take 2 Unifix cubes off the left, what have I got to do to keep it balanced? I've got to take 2 off the right. Okay? Now we're balanced again, right? So if I put 2 Unifix cubes on the left, what have I got to do to the right? Put 2 on the right to keep it balanced. And that's exactly the thought process behind solving an equation. You've got the left side of the equal sign, the right side of the equal sign, and you've got to keep them balanced. So you've got to do the same thing to both sides. Okay? Okay, so with that being said, I got to get my... Let's look at your Doodle Notes. All right? If we were to set this up in like a flow map, we're starting at the bottom. We're going to start with the most basic step and then build and add a step and build and add a step. And all of the stuff that we've done up to this point, our combining like terms, distributive property, all those things we're going to be layering on, okay? We'll be talking about the properties. We'll be using the inverse properties today when we're solving. We'll be using the commutative property when we start combining like terms and then solving. Okay, so all those properties are still going to come into play when we're solving an equation. All right, so looking at the first two equations are equivalent if they have the same solution. We'll be using the properties of equity. Those really are your inverse properties. The property of equity says adding the same number to each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. Subtracting the same number produces an equivalent equation. Basically, if you add to one side, you have to add to the other, just like we did over here. If we take away from one side, we have to take away from other. But to solve an equation, whether it's 1 step, 2 step, 10 steps, you're going to be using inverse operations, okay? What's the inverse of addition? Subtraction. What's the inverse of multiplication? Division. What's the inverse of subtraction? What's the inverse of division? Okay, so you got to know those inverse. Now today we're going to start with solving 1 step. We're going to do it in 1 step. The ultimate goal, here's what you got to get in your head. The ultimate goal for solving an equation is to get the variable to the end with a coefficient of a positive 1. Okay? Now, are we going to see that 1?
No.
What is 1? 1's always what?
Invisible.
It's our invisible superhero. We're not going to see that 1, but it's there, right? But your goal for solving an equation is to get your variable with a positive 1 coefficient, okay? So I'm going to do these 2 examples, even though they've done them for you, but I'm going to talk you through them, all right? So looking at number 1, x minus 1/2 equals 3/8. Now, yesterday we talked about how an equation would have on the left, it would have an expression or a constant, and on the right, it could have an expression or a constant, right? The first thing you're going to do, step number 1, find your expression. Where is the expression in this equation? Is it on the left of the equal sign or on the right?
Left.
The expression is on the left. Here's my expression right here. X minus 1/2. That's an expression, right? Go to your expression. That's where you start. Where do I start? Find the expression, okay? After you find your expression, you're going to identify your constant term and your variable term. We're going to do them like this. X, is that a constant term or variable term? That's a variable. X is a variable term, right? Negative 1/2 is our constant term. Does everybody see that? So far, everybody with me? Okay? Now, we're going to work in alphabetical order. Which comes first in the alphabet? C or V? C. So we gotta work with the C first. We're going to use the inverse operation. So, I need your eyes on me, and I need you fully focused, because this is the heart of 7th grade math. Everything else we've done is very important, and it's led us to this place. This is the math that is going to carry you through all of the math that you will do for the rest of your schooling. This is the foundation for every bit of the math that you're going to have to do. Okay? Everything else that we've been doing is going to be layered in and mixed in, but this is the bee's knees right here. Okay? I need you fully focused. Our constant term is a minus 1/2, right? What is the inverse or opposite of minus 1/2? Plus 1/2. So I'm going to plus 1/2 over here. And I'm going to plus 1/2 over here, because whatever I do on the left, I have to do on the right. Is everybody with me? This zeroes out. That gives me a 0, right? You see this V right here? You see how my V's kind of pointing down? That's telling me to bring my variable down. Bring down your variable. And now, what is 3/8 plus 1/2? If you didn't already know it was 7/8, you would put it in the calculator. Okay? 3/8 plus 1/2 is 7/8. And we're done. If you didn't know that, if it wasn't right there on your paper, you would do it in the calculator. Okay? Any questions? Does anybody need a minute to get this down? Hold up a 1 on your finger if you need a minute to copy this down. Okay, I'm going to give you 1 minute. Alexa, set a 1-minute timer. Okay, so now let's look at number 2. X plus 3.2 equals a negative 8.5. Okay? Now, where's my expression? On the right or the left? Left. Here's my expression right there. So we can underline the expression. Now, here's my variable term. Here's my constant term. Be sure to include the sign with your constant, okay? So, alphabetically, where do we start? With the C, right? So we've got a plus 3.2. What's the inverse of plus 3.2? Minus 3.2. So I'm on minus 3.2 right here. And I'm on minus 3.2 right here. This zeroes out. This is telling me to bring my X down. And if I didn't know this already, I could put it in my calculator, and I'm going to get 11.7. Is everybody with me? Any questions about that? All right, I'm going to give you 3 minutes, and I want you to let's do 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and I want you to try number 1, 2, and 3 down at the bottom. And then I'm going to come back and do them with you, okay? Let's talk a minute real quick. Let's come over here. Hang on before you get started. We'll move this over a little bit. Let's talk a minute about what are our steps.
Find the expression.
First step is what? Locate the expression. What's next? We're going to identify the what? The variable term. We're going to put a V around it, right? Identify what? The constant term. Put a hashtag right there. And we're going to put a C around it, right? So this is a big V. This is a big V. This is a big C, right? Then what? Where do we, so we're basically what we're doing is we're zeroing out the constant term, right? So we're going to use inverse operations to zero out that constant term, right? Right? And then we'll just put the last step as solve. That got it? Okay. 2 minutes to do those 3 right there. I'm going to pause this and come back to it. Take 2 minutes and do the three practice. All right, so let's do these. Number 1. So where my expression, is it on the right or the left? My expression is on the left. It's right there, isn't it? So here's my variable term. Here's my constant term. What have I got to do first? Huh? I did the expression. I've identified my variable and I've identified my constant. What's next? So what am I going to use to zero out a minus 3 2/3? Plus 3 2/3. And if I do it over here, plus 3 2/3, I've got to do the same thing over there, right? So that zeroes out. This is pointing down to show me to bring that variable down. And you put it into your calculator, a negative 1/3 plus 3 2/3. And you got what? 3 1/3. Now, let me double check that. Negative 1/3 plus 3 2/3 is 3 1/3. Very good. Now, be sure. Do you see my plus 2 and 3 2/3 over there? If yours is not written on your paper, you are not showing all the steps. You need to write everything down. Put it on your paper. Also, if you are used to drawing a line right there, I want you to stop. I want you to phase away from that. Because the right and the left, we're going to just know the equal sign is what separates them. We're not going to keep drawing that line, okay? All right. It's kind of like babies. You're not still drinking out of a sippy cup, are you? Huh? Do y'all still drink out of a sippy cup? Not because you want to, but not because you have to, but because you want to maybe. But you ain't still drinking a bottle, are you? Okay. That's kind of like you have to come off the bottle. Well, we're going to move away from drawing that line. So our answer here is 3 1/3. All right. Number 2, where is the expression? Right or left?
Left.
It's on the left. Identify your variable term. My variable term here is plus z, isn't it? My constant term is 4.8. All right, so what have I got to do first? I got my constant. My constant term is 4.8. So what is going to zero out that 4.8?
Negative 4.8.
Minus 4.8. That's a positive 4.8, right? So we're going minus 4.8. Minus 4.8. And notice here, this is why it's important. How many of you wanted to go over there and do something with that 9? That's why finding the expression is important. Find your expression, label your C, label your V, and whatever your C is, that's where you start. That's where you start, okay? C comes, we're going to do it in alphabetical order, okay? Wherever that C is, that's where you start, okay? So, this zeroes out. This is pointing to show me to bring down that Z. And now I'm going to add and keep the sign so I get a negative 13.8, right? But you probably should have put that in your calculator. Negative 9 minus 4.8 is a negative 13.8. Okay? What's the matter? Any questions? Okay. Number 3. Where is my variable term on this one? And it is on the right. Look at where my expression, I'm sorry. Look, here's my expression. In the expression, where is my constant? There's my constant, right? Here's my variable. Now, one thing you want to keep in mind, your C and your V, let's put a note right here. This C and V, make yourself a note, will be in the expression. The C and the V that you are working with is going to be in your expression, okay? Once you identify that expression, that's where you're working. It's like you're going to fly, your pencil is a drone, and you're going to take, and your drone is going to hone in. Y'all play all these games with drones, and your target is the expression. So we're going to hone in on that expression, and that's my target. That's what I'm working off of, okay? That's where my C is. That's where my V is. Does that make sense? All right. So now, where do I start over here? Where do I start? With the C, which is a negative 3.56. So what's the inverse of minus 3.56? Plus 3.56. 35.6. I'm sorry. 35.6. Plus 35.6. That zeroes out. And Y equals, and if you put in your calculator, negative 16.7 plus 35.6, you get 18.9.
I did it wrong and I got negative 18.9.
Okay, why do you think you got negative?
Because
You did minus the negative. Don't put in two signs in your calculator. Don't put in two signs together.
No, it was because I didn't read it right. And
Okay.
I thought the constant was negative 16.
Exactly, and that's a very common mistake, thinking that the constant is negative 16.7. Your constant's going to be in your expression, okay? That's why the first thing you have to do is find the expression. Sometimes it'll be on the right, sometimes it'll be on the left, okay? Find the expression. Your pencil is your drone, and you're going to hone in on that expression, and that's where you're working. On that expression, find your C, find your V, and then work in alphabetical order. Does that make sense? Is everybody with me? You sure? All right, let's do this word problem, and then we're going. Where did that go? All right, so go ahead and try the word problem real quick while I'm getting this pulled back up. Okay, so let's do this word problem. Tom withdrew $55.25 from his checking account. What does the word withdrawal tell me about? Huh? It's a right. So the word withdrawal is important right here because it's telling me if he withdrew $55.25, then that's a negative $55.25, right? Now his balance is negative 24.75, right? And solve an equation. So he withdrew, so he had some money in the bank, right? He withdrew $55.25, right? And he was left with a negative $24.75. You see how we set that up? So, where's my expression? On the right or the left? The left. So on the left, I have my variable term x, my constant term 55.25, negative 55.25. What is the inverse of minus 55.25? So I'm going to add 55.25 to both sides. This zeroes out, and x equals what? Negative 24.75 plus 55.25 is $30.50, right? So he had $30.50. I don't know why the bank let him get 55 if he didn't have the 30, right? That's dumb on the bank's part. All right, any questions? Okay, moving along. We're still working with one-step equations, but now we're going to look at multiplying and dividing. Multiplying and dividing. So I'm going to solve the two examples for you. I'm going to solve the two examples. M divided by 5 equals negative 2. Guys, this is critical right here. This is critical right here. You need to know that this fraction bar right here is division. That is M divided by 5. Okay? Now, where's my expression? Right or left? Left. And here's my variable term up here, right? Here's my constant term. So what's my constant term? What's being done with that constant term? What is the operation in the problem? Division, right? We're dividing by what? 5. So what's the inverse of dividing by 5? Multiplying by what? 5. So here's how we're going to show it. You can either use a dot or parentheses. Now, I, by instinct, just because it's the way I've always done it my whole life, use parentheses. I put my parentheses. Here's my multiply by 5 over here. Here's my multiply by 5 over here. Okay? You can use a dot, but I always use the parentheses. And the parentheses is going to prove to help you later in life if you get used to doing it that way. You know that parentheses means to multiply, right? Mm-hmm. So just start using it. This now gets rid of that 5. Because what's really happening there is now we are creating that 1 coefficient. We need our variable to have a positive 1 coefficient, right? And what we're actually doing right there is multiplying by the reciprocal, but we're not going to get into all that. But what I need you to understand is when you're adding and subtracting, you're zeroing out, okay? But when you're multiplying or dividing, you're actually creating a 1. And in a minute when we do it with the multiplication, you're going to see the 1. Right here, you don't see the 1 as much. But now, my variable comes down here. Negative 2 times 5 is a negative 10. Okay? Is everybody with me? All right. Look at the next one. 22 equals a negative 4x. All right, so where's my expression? On the right or the left?
Right.
The right. Here's my expression right here, right? Here's my variable. Here's my constant. Kind of all wonky looking. Let me see if I can clean that up a little bit. Negative 4x. Here's my variable. Here's my constant. So what's being done right there? What operation do you see right there between the variable and multiplication? What are we multiplying by? What are we multiplying by? Negative 4, right? So what's the inverse of multiplying by negative 4? Dividing by what? Negative 4. So I'm going to divide this side by negative 4, and I'm going to divide this side by negative 4. Now watch what happens. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is what? What's negative 4 divided by negative 4? 1. A positive 1, right? Look at what happens right here. There's my 1. There's my 1. So I'm going to bring down my x. My 1 is invisible, right? And 22 divided by negative 4 is negative 5.5. Questions? Anybody? All right. 2 minutes to do example 1, 2. Actually, I'll give you 3 minutes to do example 1, 2, and 3 and the word problem. Okay? 3 minutes to do example 1, 2, and 3 and the word problem. Alexa, set a 3-minute timer. All right. Number 1, example 1. 7x equals negative 84. Where's my expression, right or left? It's on the right. My constant term is the 7. My variable term is the x. So what have I got to do? What am I going to do here? What's being done? What's the operation that's being done right there? Multiplication. What's the inverse of multiplying? Dividing. What am I going to divide by?
7.
I'm going to divide both sides by 7. And x equals a negative 12. 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
Questions? Over here, same thing. This time I'm dividing both sides by negative 1.1. And t equals a positive what?
0.11.
Huh? Positive 1.1. All right, look at the example 3. Where's my expression? On the right or the left? The left. And what operation do we see in the expression? Division. What are we dividing by? A what?
-2.
Negative 2. So if we're dividing by negative 2, what's the inverse of that? Multiplying. So what am I going to multiply both sides by?
-2.
I'm going to multiply by negative 2 on both sides. That gives me W right here and a positive 30. Now put these in your calculators to make sure you're getting these signs right, okay? Don't let your integers mess you up on stuff when you do all the equation right and then mess up on an integer rule, okay? Especially because you can use the calculators with this. Carla earns 95 cents for every cup of hot chocolate she sells. Write and solve an equation to find out how many cups Carla needs to sell to earn $39.90. So, 95 cents per cup equals $39.90. Okay? Divide both sides by 95 cents. And what do I get? C equals what?
40.
40. 40 cups. Questions? Nobody? All right. So now I am going to kind of show you what I'm putting on Google Classroom and talk you through your directions and then go from there. Okay, so you're going to get this from me. This is an answer sheet and a place to draw. You'll see what I'm talking about. This little picture is either the body or, however you want to do it. I think it was designed for this to be his body. You're going to be creating a little monster, okay? This was kind of designed to be his body, all right? So I want to show you, I'm putting in Google Classroom, this is for you to do this one-step equations monster activity. What you're going to do is on this slide, you're going to work this problem on here. So you're going to work number 1 on here. Copy it and work it. You're going to copy and work it on here. Okay? And then whatever you get as an answer, you draw that on your monster. You draw that on your monster. Okay? Then you move on to the next one. Here's the problem. You work the problem number 2 on here, and then you draw that on your monster. Okay? Any questions about that? You don't have too long to get started on this, and then you're going to finish this for homework. Okay? And then when we come back tomorrow, we'll start 2-step equations. Okay? All right.